courtroom lights burned hotter than the Texas sun, and tonight the stage wasn't just about politics, it was war. On one side, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, sharp suit, sharper tongue, and that infamous red folder clutched in her hand like Excalibur. On the other, Kash Patel, former Trump official, Fox News darling, and a man who thought he was walking into an easy victory lap. What he did know, his career was about to collapse faster than a cheap folding chair at a backyard barbecue. It all started with that Fox News interview. The network planned it like a military ambush, producers whispering in the green room, preloaded questions designed not for answers, but for humiliation. They wanted Crockett to snap, to explode, to gift them that viral meltdown moment. What they didn't realize was that Jasmine had been underestimated her whole life, and this time she came prepared. She walked into that studio calm, collected, carrying the red folder, a binder stuffed with documents, receipts, and counterattacks so brutal they should have come with a warning label. The ambush began within 30 seconds. Patel leaned forward, smirk plastered across his face, and unleashed a rehearsed attack. "Congresswoman, isn't it true you've built your entire career on race-baiting theatrics?" The crowd at home probably expected Crockett to flinch. Instead, she cracked the faintest grin, the kind you'd see from someone holding a royal flush while everyone else thought she was bluffing. Without missing a beat, she flipped open the folder. "Funny you mention theatrics, Kash, because what's in here, it's not theater, it's truth." And then she did what every great courtroom drama thrives on, she flipped the script. Inside the red folder was Patel's own family history, documents showing his grandfather's real estate company accused of discriminatory practices back in the 1960s. Rental agreements, deposit slips, even handwritten notes that looked like something straight out of a segregationist playbook. Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply read the words aloud, each line like a dagger in Patel's armor. "So when you accuse me of race baiting, remember, your own family profited from the very system you now pretend never existed." The studio froze, viewers at home leaned in, and Kash Patel, for the first time in his career, he didn't have a comeback. Crockett wasn't finished, not by a mile. That red folder wasn't just for defense, it was for offense. After the interview, she went straight to court and filed a lawsuit so outrageous it dominated headlines instantly. $90 million in damages, $90 million. Patel's lawyers laughed at first, thinking it was a publicity stunt. But then Crockett explained the math, $1 million for every year Black Americans lived under Jim Crow laws. It wasn't about money, it was about symbolism. It was about a headline that no one could ignore. And suddenly, Patel's laughter didn't sound so confident. Here, where things got dangerous. Days after the lawsuit was filed, leaked audio surfaced, not from Crockett, not from her allies, from inside Fox itself. A junior producer had recorded a meeting where executives openly bragged about scripting the Patel interview as a meltdown trap. Their words, "We'll corner her, she'll lose it, and Patel will look like the adult in the room." When that audio hit the internet, it was like gasoline poured on a fire. Advertisers panicked. The biggest sponsors pulled their dollars overnight, terrified of being linked to racial ambushes and defamation scandals. For Patel, it was the beginning of the end. In Crockett, she became unstoppable. In the courtroom, she delivered lines like a stand-up comic, sharpening her blade on truth. At one point, when Patel's attorney tried to downplay the red folder documents as irrelevant, Crockett leaned forward, arched her eyebrow, and fired back. "Irrelevant, sir, this isn't irrelevant. This is the root. You're trying to defend a man planting flowers on poisoned soil, and I'm just pointing out the stench." The jury chuckled, Patel scowled. But the real humiliation was still ahead, because as the lawsuit gained momentum, the settlement talks began. Patel had no choice. With advertisers gone, his Fox contract in jeopardy, and his public credibility tanking, he was cornered, and Crockett knew it. In one of the most savage negotiation leaks of the year, Crockett allegedly told Patel's lawyers, "I don't want his money, I want his pride." And that's exactly what she got. The final settlement forced Patel to go live on national television, look into the camera, and issue a public apology, not just to Crockett, but to every Black woman in politics who had ever been targeted by smear campaigns. The day of the apology felt less like a broadcast and more like a public execution, metaphorically speaking. Patel sat under studio lights, beads of sweat collecting on his forehead while millions of Americans tuned in. His voice cracked as he admitted wrongdoing, reading from a script Crockett's team had reviewed line by line. Somewhere in the courtroom, Jasmine smiled, not a vengeful smile, a victorious one. And the cherry on top, Crockett announced that every penny of the settlement, millions Patel would have preferred to spend on burying his career mistakes, was going into the Red Folder Fund, a legal defense initiative to protect women of color against media smears. The symbolism was genius. The very weapon Fox tried to mock became a shield for others. But here's the twist most viewers never saw coming. The lawsuit wasn't the final blow. Oh no, that was just Act 1, because what Crockett did next flipped the narrative from legal victory to cultural revolution. She launched a campaign redefining media accountability, rallying politicians, activists, and even rival networks to sign on. Overnight, the red folder turned from a prop into a movement. And Patel? Well, his name became less about power and more about failure. He went from being the face of conservative talking points to a cautionary tale taught in law schools, how not to pick a fight with Jasmine Crockett. But let's rewind, because while Patel's fall was spectacular, Crockett's rise had layers that made this courtroom saga irresistible. Remember that leaked Fox audio? What no one realized was that Crockett had been tipped off before it went public. That's why she walked into court so calm, so steady, with that half smile like a chess master who already knows the final move. She wasn't reacting. She was executing a plan that was 10 steps ahead. It's like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat, except in this case, the rabbit was Patel's career, and the hat was already on fire. Every twist raised the stakes. Every document in that red folder felt like another card in a rigged deck. Patel was swinging blindly, hopping to land a punch, while Crockett turned the whole fight into a comedy roast. At one point during proceedings, she quipped, "If Kash Patel keeps digging this hole, maybe he should apply for a job in construction. At least then he'd build something honest." The courtroom erupted, Patel's face redder than Crockett's folder. But here, where the energy spiked again, because the lawsuit, the leaks, the apology, those were just battles. The real war was Crockett's message, that media ambushes aren't just dirty politics, they're weapons designed to erase voices. And if one woman could flip the script, then maybe the system could be rewritten altogether. By the time the first settlement check cleared, Crockett wasn't just a politician anymore. She was a symbol. She was the red folder. And yet, this was only the beginning. Because the next move she made left the courtroom gasping, Patel's allies scrambling, and the media industry staring at its own reflection in horror. What came next wasn't just a victory lap, it was a revolution in real time. Jasmine Crockett walked out of that courtroom not with a settlement check in her hand, but with an idea in her head. And that idea was dangerous. Dangerous not because it was reckless, but because it was powerful enough to outlive any single trial, any single lawsuit. She announced the creation of the Red Folder Fund, and suddenly Patel's humiliation wasn't just personal. It became the seed money for a movement. The fund had one mission: defend women of color who found themselves ambushed, smeared, and silenced by the media machine. Crockett made it clear, if they try to script your downfall, we'll rewrite the script in real time. And just like that, the very trap designed to end her career became the hammer she would use to shatter an entire system. But while Crockett was making history, Patel was drowning. His reputation collapsed so fast, it was like watching a sandcastle meet high tide. First, Fox quietly pulled him off the air, disguising it as a temporary reassignment. Then major conservative donors began distancing themselves, whispering that Patel had become radioactive. His speeches got canceled, his book sales flatlined, and social media turned him into a meme. One viral post showed Patel's face photoshopped onto a sinking ship with the caption, "The SS career gone in 90 million ways." But Crockett didn't gloat, that was the shocking part. She could have danced on his grave, but instead she played it cool, sharp, strategic. Every public statement wasn't about Patel, it was about accountability. She framed him as a symptom of a bigger disease, a media culture addicted to humiliation. And people listened. Networks that once dismissed her suddenly scrambled to book her. Journalists who mocked her folder now begged for interviews. Still, Patel wasn't ready to go quietly. Cornered, humiliated, desperate, he tried to flip the narrative. His legal team filed counterclaims, alleging Crockett's lawsuit was political theater. He staged rallies with a handful of die-hard supporters, ranting that he was the victim of woke lawfare. But it was too late. Every attempt to fight back only made him look smaller, weaker, more pitiful, like a boxer still swinging long after the referee called the match. And Crockett, she was still building momentum. One night during a rally in Houston, she told the crowd, "They thought they were writing my ending, but all they did was give me the pen." The line went viral. Hashtags exploded. Even comedians jumped on board. Late-night hosts roasted Patel mercilessly, calling him the only man who lost a fight to a folder. The drama reached its peak when Patel was dragged back into court for failing to comply with the settlement terms. The live public apology he gave, turns out he had tried to water it down. Crockett's lawyers filed a motion demanding he redo it, this time unscripted, and the judge agreed, so Patel had to stand, live on national television, and speak from the heart. It was agony. His voice shook, his words stumbled, and for once in his career he couldn't hide behind talking points. Millions watched as he muttered, "I was wrong, I hurt people, and I apologize to Congresswoman Crockett and every woman of color who has faced these attacks." The internet exploded. Memes, reaction videos, even remixes of his apology blasted across TikTok. The humiliation was total, and Crockett, she didn't need to say a word. Her silence in that moment was louder than any speech. But here, where Crockett pulled her boldest move yet. Instead of walking away with her win, she turned the spotlight back on the media giants themselves. In a fiery speech to Congress, she demanded new standards for televised debates, rules banning ambush tactics, ensuring transparency, and protecting guests from being lured into scripted traps. The same networks that once mocked her now scrambled to adopt her rules voluntarily, terrified of being the next Fox News scandal. It was checkmate. Crockett hadn't just beaten Patel, she bent the entire system. And yet there's always one more twist, because after Patel's career imploded, whispers began circulating that he had been set up by his own allies. Some insiders claimed Fox executives planned to use him as a fall guy all along, testing the waters of their ambush strategy on someone expendable. Whether true or not, the rumors spread like wildfire, making Patel not just a villain, but a tragic pawn. Irony, of course, wasn't lost on Crockett. When asked about it in an interview, she delivered one of the coldest lines of the saga. "If you choose to be a pawn, don't be surprised when the board gets flipped." The clip racked up millions of views overnight. But the ultimate legacy was Patel's fall. It was Crockett's rise. The Red Folder Fund grew exponentially, pulling donations from across the nation. Lawyers volunteered their time, activists spread the message, and politicians aligned themselves with her cause. In less than a year, Crockett transformed from a congresswoman fighting for her own survival into a national symbol of resistance against media manipulation. And let's be brutally honest here, in politics, symbols outlive scandals. Patel was forgotten as quickly as yesterday's headline. But Crockett, she became a story people couldn't stop telling. A David versus Goliath tale where David didn't just win, she took the giant's sword, carved a new path, and handed it to others. By the end of the trial, one headline summed it up perfectly. Crockett wins by raising the truth. That was it. Simple, sharp, unforgettable. She didn't just defend herself, she redefined the battlefield. And so the saga ends with a paradox. Kash Patel thought he was walking into a performance, a scripted spectacle where he'd emerge as the calm, collected hero. Instead, he became the villain in someone else's story. Jasmine Crockett, the supposed target, turned the ambush into her coronation. The red folder was never just a folder, it was proof, it was power. And now it's a legacy. So when people ask what really happened in that courtroom, the answer is simple. Crockett didn't just win a lawsuit. She raised the truth so high, the world had no choice but to look up. And Patel, well, his career isn't just over. It's buried 6 feet deep with a bright red folder as its headstone. But here's the kicker. This isn't the end of Crockett's story. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when someone rewrites the rules this boldly, the ripples don't fade. They grow, they spread. And one day soon, another courtroom, another ambush, another red folder moment will ignite. And when it does, we'll remember this day. The day a congresswoman proved that truth, once raised high enough, can't be silenced.